Investors who walked away are returning. Stalled projects have resumed. Economic contraction is replaced with economic expansion. And where there were job losses, we are now seeing job creation. Those are the words of the Honorable Minister, Senior Minister in the Office of the President with responsibility for finance, Dr. Ashni Singh, as he unveiled Budget 2022. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Budget in Focus. Joining me in studio at this time is the Honorable Minister within the Ministry of Housing and Water, Suzanne Rodrigues. Thank you so much, Minister, for being here.
Thank you, Travis. Pleasure to be here.
All right. First off, as we begin our program at this time, I would like to know your thoughts on Budget 2022. Holistically, of course, there is major investments in addressing the cost of living situation in the country. So in that respect, what are your thoughts?
Well, let me just take this opportunity to commend the Senior Minister with responsibility for finance. He delivered an eloquent budget 2022. Even though it was 5 hours and 15 minutes, I sat there throughout the entire thing, and it was so engaging that, the time flew by, the 5 hours flew by. So it was a wonderful presentation. Budget 2022, $552.9 billion. I know it's cliche to say it's the biggest budget ever, but that is a good thing. And it is a good thing because if we were to go back a little bit and we were to look at when the People's Progressive Party Civic crafted its manifesto 2020, that was a 5-year plan, 2020 to 2025, our first term in office. And in that manifesto, and since we have taken office, we have outlined a vision for Guyana, a vision that is transformational, a vision that will modernize our country, a vision that will see the quality of life for ordinary Guyanese improve, a vision that will see a heavy focus on people's welfare, the vulnerable, women, children, all of that contained in our manifesto and in our 5-year plan and our 5-year vision for Guyana. Now, if we were to have that vision and not have the requisite policies and programs in order to implement that vision, it would be just what it is, a vision. It would never come into reality. It would never become reality. And so every budget, and this is our 3rd budget now, we have implemented policies and programs and made the necessary financial investment to ensure that we bring that vision and we deliver all of the things that we promised the people of our country to bring it into reality. And so it is only fitting that every budget we try as far as possible to make the necessary allocations in the budget, the financial allocations, so that we can see that transformation take place, so that we can see that modernization take place, so that we can see people's welfare improve and the quality of life for ordinary Guyanese improve. That's what the money is there for, to ensure that that vision becomes a reality, to ensure that in our lifetime and in our first term, we witness that transformation. And so it's not just talk in abstract. You have seen from the time our government has taken office, we've hit the ground running. We had a solid manifesto on which it's our foundation, and we've been building on that. We've been making the necessary allocations in our budget to see that vision implemented. And, and it's the same for in our Ministry of Housing and Water. We've said we're going to distribute 50,000 house lots in 5 years, and we are well on our way to achieving that target. We've met our first full year target already. We've surpassed that. And so that is what the investment is in the budget to do, to ensure that all of the things and all of the commitments that we made to our people, that it is delivered for them. This money is being spent on the people. It's the people of our country who will ultimately benefit from all of this investment.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Minister. Wonderful words to begin. Specifically, the theme that Budget 2022 was launched under is steadfast against all challenges, resolute in building our One Guyana. Of course, you referenced just some of the initiatives there, but I want to ask specifically in your sector, can we talk about in 18 months, we've seen massive transformation in the country, especially in the housing sector.
Right.
Persons have a renewed interest and investment in acquiring their own home. We've seen the access to potable water being improved in that 18 months. How hard has that been under your leadership to get everything back on track? And specifically to how did we start on that process of really building the One Guyana through your ministry?
So I can't answer you unless we look at what we inherited.
Yes.
And when we came in August 2020, we assumed office. Of course, everyone knows this by now because we've made it public, and they felt it over the 5 years under the previous administration. The housing sector in decline. A change of ministers during the APNU AFC tenure. No clear housing policy, and you saw just over 7,000 allocations in 5 years. In the 18 months we've been in office, we have already surpassed that. We've surpassed our own target of 10,000 house lots annually. And so it has not been easy because when we got there were no solid plans, there were no projects in the pipelines, there was nothing that we could pick up and start to implement. We literally had to go back to all of the plans that were left there. Since President Ali was there as a Minister of Housing and Water, and pick up on those plans and pick up on his vision again and to continue to run with that, because he left a legacy in the housing sector, one that was has been difficult to match, but under his stewardship now, we're going to ensure that we even surpass what was allocated before 2015. And so it has been a lot of work. You see the Ministry of Housing working tirelessly 24 hours a day almost in some periods of the year, especially when we have our Dream Realize allocation events. We work around the clock. And this is also because there was this huge gap that was left in the housing sector. And people had been disappointed. People thought that they would never have their housing application processed. They would never see their house lot. And now with the PPP in government, they have a sense of renewed hope. So when we first took office, you would see lines in front of the ministry. You would see the place really busy. And we're still in a COVID-19 pandemic, but we had to respond. We had to respond to the people. We had to ensure that we deliver housing in keeping with our manifesto commitments and in living up to people's expectation. I think the people of our country put trust and confidence in us that we can do this job, and we must not let them down. And it's same in the water sector. There was a huge neglect in the water sector. The Guyana Water Inc., the utility company, was in serious trouble, serious financial trouble, and we had to revamp that. We had to bring a renewed sense of hope in that utility company. We were bailed out by the government of Guyana because the company was heavily in debt. And so it's now, you can start to see now the company being able to produce better quality water and to be able to generate revenue for itself so that it can start to stand on its own feet and help to dig itself out of debt. And so, this will only continue. So it was not just about making allocations in the housing sector, making sure that we distribute a house lot. But with the budgetary allocations, starting from 2020 and then 2021 and now the massive allocation in 2022, we can continue our work in infrastructure development. of our housing schemes, because even that was neglected. So put aside that the APNU AFC only delivered 7,000 house lots in the 5 years. What they also neglected to do was to upgrade the existing housing schemes and make investments in new housing schemes. So we saw when we came into office, all of our housing schemes, the people were crying out, bad roads, the quality of water is not good. And this is because of that neglect that had been created by the opposition when they were in office. So we had to start this massive investment in our existing housing schemes, and then make investment in new housing schemes so we can make those 50,000 house lots available in the housing sector. And while we made investments to improve the services at GWI, we also crafted our strategic plan 2021 to 2025 for GWI, so that we can see improved access to first time access of water to people in our hinterland communities. And even on the coastland, there are still some areas that still need access to potable water. So access to first time access, and also improving the quality of water that we deliver. And we have said, and we've set a new target for ourselves, that we want to improve treated water coverage to over 90%. It's only about 50 something percent now. We want to increase that to over 90% by the end of our first term. And this calls for massive investment again, massive investment in water treatment plants, so that people can receive clear water. The water we deliver now is safe, and I have to say that, even though it's high in iron content, it is still safe for consumption, safe for use, but it's not the modern Guyana that we talk about. And so in all of this transformation, in seeing the investment in infrastructure, education, health, security, you cannot turn a blind eye to the basic things as well. You cannot have development, a lopsided development where you have investment only in infrastructure and people's welfare is not being taken care of. So we can't save the money in the NRF. I know I see it was a huge controversy that we're spending oil money and all of that, but we're spending it so that we can improve people's lives. We can't save the money and people need clean water. We can't save the money and people don't have electricity. We can't save the money and we have 70,000 house lot applications. We have to invest in our people. And in investing in our people, we also at the same time, Travis, cannot burden them with debt. And this is why it is so important, and it is such a big deal, that even though this budget is over 40% more than budget 2021, there's still no new taxes. There is still no greater burden on the people of our country now, this generation. And in future generations, they will also not be saddled with debt. So that is what people have to think about when they think about budget. It's easy to get carried away with rhetoric and some of the things that have been spewing online about the PPP spending oil money. It's easy to get carried away because it's catchy, and it may sound popular. But you have to sit and really assess who really is going to benefit from this investment, if not the people.
Thank you so much, Minister. I want us to look specifically in housing. We see $12.4 billion being allocated for the improvement of infrastructure to housing areas across the country. Mm-hmm. I would like to know specifically the PPPC's administration plan. How does the government see housing, especially where we are heading in terms of the transformational agenda? And how does Budget 2022 support progressing the country?
Well, Travis, let me just give you an example. When we came into office, we saw that there were allocations made by the previous administration in Cummins Lodge. Now, Travis, just about everybody who's been paying attention knows that there was not even a bridge built to access that land at Cummins Lodge until we came into office in 2020. That's the thing I'm talking about. A huge disconnect. Saying to the people one thing, having a vision, but in their case, they had no vision. But I mean, obviously, if you're the minister of housing on the some government, you have to have some kind of plan on how you're going to implement housing, how you're going to deliver housing to people. And that's just one example. People received their allocation 5 years ago, and nobody made the investment. The previous administration didn't make the investment in the housing schemes. So we had to ensure that we made those house lots available. And if you would recall the figure, the exact figure was 1,987 house lots were distributed during 2020, the first half, that period, that 5-month period, and the period before elections. They went into a frenzy and they distributed almost 2,000 house lots, for which people did not know where their land was and so on. We never took back any lands from anyone. We honored all of those allocations because those were innocent allottees, and we made the necessary investment in our first budget to do the infrastructure works in these communities. Then, of course, we have to chase down our own target of 50,000. And in 2021, we started to make new investments in new housing schemes and so on to reach our target. So it's been massive investment. It's been a lot of work. And now with this budget, it's more work. So it's not business as usual. People are going to be really, really shocked. People are going to be really surprised when they see a new order of things. You know, there's a new dispensation now. People saw this flurry of activity in 2021. And that was a big budget. And we had to be working around the clock. People saw life again in communities. People saw equipment move in and you know, the investment in infrastructure and in modernizing Guyana in such a short period of time. Now we have more resources. We have to work harder. Yeah. So that's what more resources mean, more work, to ensure that we spend this money in a way where, where it is intended to go. And of course, this passes through the National Assembly, so it's scrutinized and it's there for the public to see and hear about the allocations and what the money is for. And then people will look forward to see 24 hours work. No less a person than the president has said that. He said, we have to work 24/7 now in order to implement this budget and the programs and plans that we have here. So I think Guyanese ought to be very excited about budget 2022. And they must see as well and appreciate as well that all we are trying to do is to make that vision a reality, is to make all of the plans and programs that we went to the electorate with in 2020, that we're putting that vision into action. We're translating that into a reality that will bring a better Guyana for everyone. So if anybody feels aggrieved about not having any specific attention placed to them in the budget, any group of people who feel like they were not given specific attention in the budget, I say to them, when Guyana does better, we all do better. And so, or we try as much as possible to make increases in old age pension, for example, public assistance, the school children. But if any group feels like they were left out, we have to also look at the bigger picture. And you also have to appreciate that there is a government in office that will stop at nothing to ensure that that vision becomes a reality, to ensure that Guyana progresses, and that along with the country progressing and modernizing, we want to bring everybody along with us so that we can all be on a level playing field. We want to bridge that gap among our various groups of people. And that's why you see us in housing even investing in programs like the community-based employment program, where we go into vulnerable communities and have them building blocks to use in our housing construction. So it's a very considerate approach. It's while we are making house lots available, we are building houses, we are creating jobs, we are ensuring that the vulnerable gets help. We have persons who have disability that is participating in that block making program. So it's easy sometimes to think that we get carried away with massive infrastructure program and neglecting the people, but we are ensuring that we have a balanced approach, that we still have time to look at what may be considered the smaller issues, the softer issues, and of course, delivering housing and clean water.
Yeah. Minister, there's a section where we see a significant relief in the form of the low-income mortgage ceiling, the loan ceiling being moved from 12 million to 15. What is that translated to the average person? And also, from Budget 2022, can we expect the emergence of new housing schemes, and what will those look like?
Well, certainly. Our focus has been on home ownership. So while we make house lots available for people, we have always ensured that we put policies in place to ensure that people can acquire their home. So we did several things when we came in 2020. So very early, we started to implement policies to ensure that if we say that we're going to promote home ownership, we have to make it easily affordable. We have to make it accessible to people. So we remove VAT from building and construction materials. We remove VAT from water. We sat down with the banks. We said to them, look, there's going to be a massive investment in the housing sector. There's going to be hundreds and thousands of people who need access to loans. You have to do your part in lowering interest rates. We wanted to give people an opportunity to build a better quality home. And so we lifted the low-income ceiling so people can access more money so that they can build a home that is up to their standard, so that they're not restricted in any way. And those were just some of the measures that we put in place. And you saw that translate in 2022, when Minister Ashley Singh said there's been an increase in borrowing by over $5 billion from 2021 to 2022. And that is a direct correlation between those policies that we put in place and people who are now able to access loans, who could not have accessed it before because the policies were not in place and the investment in housing schemes and in the construction of homes was not there. I've spoken with many people, dozens of people, who had their allocations since before 2015, who did not build, who did not construct their homes because they said the necessary utilities were not available. So there was no electricity, there was no water. How were they expected to build? And this comes back to what I was telling you before, that while we only look at the dismal performance in terms of house lot allocation under the APNU AFC, at the same time they were not making investments in housing schemes. So the roads and bridges were not being upgraded, utilities were not being installed, and so people who had their allocations before were not investing either. And that contributed to a stall in the economy. Now when people see roads being upgraded in existing schemes, electricity, water being installed, pipes being run to people's home, they're having their own connections and so on. Now people are encouraged to build. So now people are approaching the financial institutions and say, I need a loan. So it's not only the government that has been investing in infrastructure and in construction. Because of our policies and because we've made it easy for people to access mortgages, and we've also been helping our allottees through the process from allocation and or if they would like to purchase one of the homes, helping them through that process with the banks to help them to acquire a loan so that they can purchase one of the houses. So it's been a really well-rounded approach, an approach in which we want to not only make house lot allocations, but we want to make home ownership available, and we want to build sustainable communities. And so not only making residential allocations, but we are creating zones within all of our housing schemes and making investment in land, making land available for commercial investment and industrial investment, so that people can access services within their communities and they can access jobs. Because when there are businesses within communities, zoned of course, they're closer in proximity to where they work and where they live. So this is how you build wholesome communities. We're making sure that we upgrade all of the recreational grounds within our housing schemes. And we're making sure we leave enough green spaces within those housing schemes. We're building new schools in housing schemes. Take, for example, the Prospect School that the Ministry of Education will be building now in 2022. That's in our housing scheme. So he made that land available so that we can build a school there. Because with the explosion in population on the East Bank now, there's the need for another school. And it goes on, hospitals and all of these investments that we're making within our housing schemes so that people have access to everything, so that they can have improved quality of life and standard of living.
Thank you, Minister. Of course, we're coming down to program time, but I just wanted to sneak this one right in before we go. Because of this year's allocation, more persons, like you said, will be able to acquire their own home. More communities will be able to enjoy access to potable water. How do you see that translating to the President's vision of a One Guyana? How does your ministry how will it help to push the agenda of President?
Travis, our house lot allocation exercise is a very public event. We invite all members of the media. We are there in front of the whole country. All day we are there making house lots available. We announce how many house lots we're going to distribute, and then we always follow up and reveal to the public how many we have distributed. There are cameras everywhere for people to see all day. And every time you look in that crowd, no one can accuse this government, this PPPC government, of bias or discrimination against any group of people. When you look into the faces of the allottees or the beneficiaries at our Dream Realize events, you will see the faces of Guyanese. Everywhere. This is not done in secret. This is a public, open event that people can come to. You don't have to qualify based on the color of your skin. You don't qualify based on which party you voted for. You don't produce some kind of membership card into some special club or political party to get a house lot. All we look at is the date of your application, because we have to ensure that we deal with that backlog, that we deal with the gap that was left there in the housing sector. And that's how we allocate our lands. So that is how we contribute when we talk about building One Guyana. Ensuring that when we deliver goods and services to the people in the housing and water sector, that we do it equally. We distribute equally. And not only One Guyana in the sense of your race or your ethnicity, but for me, One Guyana also means bridging the gap between coastland and hinterland, because we also have to deliver for our hinterland communities. So for me, it goes beyond ethnicity. One Guyana goes beyond that. One Guyana also means ensuring that our brothers and sisters who live in the hinterland community have the same easy access to goods and services as our brothers and sisters on the coastland. So that's how I contribute, Travis.
Thank you, Minister, for taking time out to be here, putting Budget 2022 into perspective and also what we can expect from your ministry. And thank you to you, our listeners and viewers of this program of Budget in Focus. I am Travis Bruce. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.